Hi everyone, welcome back to Brave the Adventures. I'm Hayley,
No, I'm Rob. It's great to see you all joining us again.
and today we are going to look at a topic which actually was sent in by one of our subscribers. So thank you ever so much for suggesting this. We hear so much about all of the amazing thrill coasters in the UK, and particularly with Hyperia now being the biggest coaster in the UK, there's been an exciting year for new coasters. However, everybody's coaster journey has to start somewhere. And what we wanted to discuss today was about some of the smaller coasters, those beginning starter coasters for young children at around that zero 0.9 meter height restriction. And there are loads of them in the UK. And we're going to pick out some of our favourites today to help you on your journey. I think it's fair to say we all remember the first coaster that we rode as a child. Do you remember yours, Rob?
Yes, so my first coaster was a coaster called Viper, and I think it was by Pinfari, and it was located at the now defunct Mr. Marvel's amusement park in Scarborough. Me and my
Marvels.
sister, I remember us lapping it a few times. Yeah, really good memories.
Fabulous. And I think it's just one of those things that it's so important that you get it right, because particularly with young children, they can be fearless, but they can also be a little bit worried about being on some of the bigger coasters. So with summer holidays now starting to come to an end, it's a great time to start thinking about taking children to various theme parks when the older kids are back at school, and giving them some of those first rides. So there are so many in the country. We haven't got time, sadly, to go through all of them today, but we're going to take you through maybe 4 or 5 of some really key players and what's great about them and any drawbacks to them for a younger audience. I think a good place for us to start would be Dragon's Apprentice at Legoland. This is a coaster that's been at Legoland now since 1999. It only runs on one train, and it's a mini version of the main Dragon coaster at Legoland. It's a brilliant first coaster, and I think in terms of theming, probably one of the better children's themed coasters. Quite often, these starter coasters just don't really have much theming. They can feel a little bit off the shelf and plonked in a theme park. But what's great about Dragon's Apprentices, you've got that brilliant dragon train which holds 12 either adults and children or combined. And it also goes through the castle. It's got a great theming station, and it does 2 laps as well. So even though it's quite a short ride, it does feel like it's worthwhile and quite a decent duration of ride for younger guests. My children really love the theming of it. It is a 0.9, so it's a great first one. And I think sitting next to the main dragon, I think children really like the fact they can see the progression of what actually might be to come as they get older. It's got a 360 helix, so it has got a great element in it for children to enjoy. But the queues for this ride do seem to drag. And when you've got young children, particularly preschool children or kind of 5 years old, it's a long time for them to queue. And it's something we do see at Legoland a lot. It also only runs on one train, so it can be a slow queue and it can be quite slow operation. So that's something to take in mind if you've got a younger guest who's keen to ride the ride, but actually might struggle with the queuing times for that. But otherwise, I think it's a great coaster and a good opportunity. And at Legoland, you've got so many rides that are based around that age of children that there's so much for you to do if your child does get to Dragon's Apprentice and then thinks, I'm not quite ready for this step yet. So that's Dragon's Apprentice. I think sticking with the Merlin theme, let's hop over to Thorpe Park and look at their offering.
Yes, so Thorpe Park, the Flying Fish. Really interesting history with this one. It's actually one of the OG rides from Thorpe Park. Opened in 1984 as Space Station Zero. It was actually a roller coaster in the dark, ran through 2 cycles, one completely in the dark, and the other cycle with all mirrored disco balls, that kind of thing. So in its time, it was certainly of its time, I would say, in the 1980s. It closed in 1989 before it was actually moved outside to kind of how we all know and love it today. So it's rethemed as the Flying Fish. Operated all the way through until 2005, where it was then removed again, this time for the building of Stealth, and it then reopened and moved to its current location, which is near the water ride there in 2007. So 3 cycles now this ride does. Really well themed. It's a Mack Rides powered coaster as well. I'm not a massive lover of a powered coaster, but I think for kids, certainly it's a great experience. And I know your kids absolutely love it, Hayley.
Yeah, mine absolutely love this ride, and it's great. It feels like it's a slightly bigger coaster than the Dragon's Apprentice. And even though, again, it's a 0.9 height restriction, so same as Dragon's Apprentice, it does feel like a little bit more of a bigger coaster. My 2 children, I would say, who rode this kind of when they were 5, 6, would probably say it's their favourite of the starter coasters. It's the one that they remember best, probably because, as you said, it does those 3 cycles. So it does feel like a longer ride. I have ridden it this year, and actually operations on it were pretty good. I think we queued for about half an hour. The queue does seem to move quite frequently as well. So that tends to be a good benefit for it. I think if I had to pick a kind of downside for advising families, it would just be to be aware that obviously Thorpe Park, with those big thrill rides, doesn't have a huge offering for children of that 0.9 height restriction. So yes, they'll be able to ride Flying Fish, but there are minimal other rides that are particularly exciting that they would be able to get on at Thorpe Park. So it might be one for saving when you've got older members of the family coming along as well.
Brilliant.
So with
Where are
that
we
in
going now?
mind, we're going to go over to Drayton Manor now. And this is where I know that you love a bit of nostalgia, and Drayton Manor is kind of where my nostalgic bug went, because we're going to go to Troublesome Trucks at Thomas Land, and this is actually the very first starter coaster that both of my children ever rode. And I know I've got a really cute image of Ethan with back when he had curly hair against that height restriction, which we will flag on this video. And it's a great coaster. Thomas Land itself, I think, is probably the best themed area for children in the country. There are so many different rides. It's all themed really well. I do think Drayton have got this absolutely spot on, and Troublesome Trucks is a fine example of that. It's a little bit of a higher height restriction, so it's not a 0.9, it's actually a 1 meter height restriction. So just to bear that in mind if you've got children on the threshold. But it also is, it's not really showing its age. It's a 2008 Gerstlauer coaster, and it's still quite punchy. It's got some good elements. It's got a good drop. It does 2 laps. Unlike Dragon's Apprentice, which only holds 12 riders, Troublesome Trucks holds 20. So the operations on it, even though it runs on 1 train, are still really good. And what I love about it, you've obviously got the Thomas themed trucks themselves, which are really cute. The rest of the ride is okay themed, but what's so nice is that the queue line for it actually runs alongside the main Thomas train that goes up and down at Drayton Manor. So it's quite useful to keep children that are younger and easily distracted or bored occupied, because they can see Thomas coming up and down. So for me, I'm not really sure that there are any drawbacks for Troublesome Trucks. It might be a nostalgic one for me, but my boys love it. I have just such wonderful memories of taking them on that ride. It's smooth as well, which is great for a children's coaster, and it's really re-rideable. And I think what's great about that is that obviously now at Drayton as well, we've got Gold Rush, which has opened this year, and as yet me and you haven't been able to get over and ride that, but I can't wait until we do. That's also a 1 meter height restriction, but what it has got is it's that Intamin lift and launch coaster, which is brilliant. I love an Intamin coaster, so I cannot wait to ride this. And what's so unique about Gold Rush is, considering it's got such a low height restriction, it's got that switch track element, it's got back and forward elements. I've heard it's quite intense for a family coaster. So it means if you've got children, you take them there, they enjoy Troublesome Trucks, they're also going to be able to ride Gold Rush as well. So I think there's a huge amount at Drayton Manor for people with young children or uncles, aunties who want to take nephews and nieces out for the day. There's loads to do there. So I think you would be hard pressed to beat Troublesome Trucks and Drayton Manor generally for starter coasters.
It would be even better though, wouldn't it, if they were to bring back Pirate Adventure.
I mean, that is a whole
That's
video.
the dream.
The dream is put Pirates Adventure back in
Yeah,
there, and I will be at Drayton every weekend.
me
So
too.
fingers crossed for
Fingers
that one
crossed
to
for
be.
that. And also Gold Rush
Absolutely
with its two different cycles as well. I think that's really interesting. It runs on
so
two
good.
different rides, really. So in the morning, start off on cycle one, and then later in the day, apparently they move on to cycle two. So it's really re-rideable. So really can't wait to get onto Gold Rush. So now I think we're going to go
Absolutely.
from the newest to what I think must be the oldest kids coaster in the UK, and that's over to Blackpool again to look at Blue Flyer. So Blue Flyer is a wooden roller coaster built by Philadelphia Toboggan Company and opened way back in 1934. So really old, really classic. It's situated right next to Nickelodeon Streak in Nickelodeon Land. I went on this when we visited back in June, really for that nostalgia element, really. I knew it wasn't going to be particularly thrilling, but it's certainly got some really, really good elements. It opened as the Zipper Dipper. It was then
Love that
rethemed
name.
to be in the Bradley Beaver kind of theming. It was then rethemed again back in 2011 and became then the Blue Flyer to sit amongst the Nickelodeon Land theming. Which is the kiddies area over in Blackpool Pleasure Beach. There's loads of great rides there, including, as I said,
So good.
Nickelodeon Streak, and then Backyardigans is obviously Rugrats Lost River, which we absolutely love. Maximum height of 15 feet, so it's not particularly tall. It's three small hills and then a tunnel which runs through that kind of mountain, which was the Space Invader 2 ride. It's got a manual braking system, which is fabulous to see that that's still operating really well these days. And also, I think probably one of the most interesting facts about Blue Flight is that there's actually no height restriction. So as long as you can walk onto that ride unaided, you're able to take a ride on Blue Flyer. So yeah, I would really recommend everybody, whether you've got kids or not really, just to pop along onto that ride and just enjoy and soak up the history of it. It's yeah, it's certainly something. It's grade 2 listed as well. So it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
I think the last coaster that we've probably got time to just briefly talk about is another one of the Merlin coasters, which is the Octonaut coaster at Alton Towers. Just to kind of round off our tour of the kind of key Merlin parks. This is a Zamperla coaster. It's not one of my favourites as a parent, and it's actually not my children's favourite as to ride personally. But I think it's worth a mention because it does sit over there in CBeebies Land, which I think is going to be a lot of people taking younger children to parks. Going to be their first thought of where do I want to go? I want to take them to CBeebies Land. So there is a starter coaster there at CBeebies Land for you. It's Octonauts theme, as I said. It's a 0.9 height restriction. It's got a 3 meter drop on it, so it has got some nice elements on it, and it holds, I think, 14 riders. It is on a one train, and it does go round twice. But the queues for that coaster, I have seen them in excess of over an hour. So it's a cute little ride. It's got some okay theming. It's kind of tucked away a little bit in CBeebies Land, but just do be aware that particularly on peak days, it is a long queue. It's very, very popular. It's definitely got its place. It's nothing special, but it's a nice little coaster for parents to ride with their children nonetheless. And obviously, there are many more. We could be here all day going through Polton's Park. Just up the road from me, we've got Wixty Park, where we've got another Pinfari starter coaster as well. There are so many out there on those kind of children's themed parks themselves, like Gulliver's Land also will have some offerings. They're not really parks that me and you particularly would go to, but it's definitely worth having a look at your local offerings. But for the big players, hopefully we'll have given you a little bit of insight into those starter coasters. And do drop us a comment. What was your first coaster? Because I bet every single person who views this video or who likes and subscribes to the channel will definitely remember their first coaster, first ride. It's so important to get it right and to just have fun with it and to enjoy making those memories.
Definitely, yeah. So please do drop us a comment. Let us know what your first coaster was. Let us know what coasters your kids enjoy riding as well. As Hayley said, this topic was requested by one of our subscribers, which is fabulous. So if you've got any other ideas of what we can talk about in future videos, again, just drop us a comment. Remember to give us a like, remember to subscribe and switch on notifications. And we will be back soon, braving the adventures with you.
Fabulous. Bye, everyone.
Bye.